Protecting yourself while applying pesticides. Using personal protective equipment. Protecting yourself while applying pesticides is important. According to the Environmental Protection Agency, a pesticide is any substance or mixture of substances intended to prevent, destroy, or repel any pest. Simply put, pesticides are substances intended to kill pests. But can they harm people? Humans, insects, and rodents are very different from one another, but in many ways they are also similar. They have similar nervous, circulatory, and respiratory systems. So, a pesticide that attacks an insect's nervous system could attack your nervous system too. So let's talk about ways you can protect yourself when applying pesticides. A big part of protecting yourself is using your personal protective equipment, also known as PPE. First, we'll talk about signal words. Then we'll define PPE, the minimum recommended PPE, how to care for your PPE, and finally, how to properly launder the clothing you wear when applying pesticides. Signal words. The impacts of some pesticides on your health may be short-term. Short-term effects are known as acute effects. Acute effects include rashes, eye irritation, or nausea and vomiting. They can happen immediately after exposure to a pesticide. But health effects of pesticides may also be long-term. Long-term effects are known as chronic effects. Cancer is a chronic effect and may impact your health long after the pesticide exposure. Thus, it is very important that you understand the toxicity of the pesticides you handle. How can you know the toxicity of a pesticide? Each pesticide has a signal word on the label that tells you how toxic it is. The signal word is based on how lethal it is to human life and the damage it can do to other animals or the environment. There are 4 signal words used for pesticides: caution, warning, danger, and danger poison. Caution. Pesticides marked with caution can cause slight eye or skin irritation. These are the lowest toxicity pesticides. Warning. Pesticides marked with warning can also cause skin or eye irritation and symptoms of pesticide poisoning. These effects can happen with only a small amount of the pesticide. These are moderately toxic pesticides. Danger. Pesticides marked with danger can be lethal in small amounts. Eye and skin damage can be permanent. These pesticides have a high toxicity. Danger poison. With the skull and crossbones symbol, pesticides marked with danger poison can be lethal to humans in very small amounts. These pesticides have a very high toxicity. General use pesticides can be purchased by anyone. Most general use pesticides use the signal words caution or warning. The more toxic pesticides that use the signal words danger or danger poison are called restricted use pesticides. These can only be purchased by certified or licensed pesticide applicators. And they can only be applied by certified or licensed pesticide applicators, or by someone under their direct supervision. Personal protective equipment. You may not get to choose the pesticide you are asked to apply, but you do have a choice in the way you protect yourself. Personal protective equipment, known as PPE, is the clothing and equipment you use to protect yourself during a pesticide application. The PPE required when using a specific pesticide is listed on the pesticide label. PPE requirements may be different for applying pesticides than for mixing pesticides. You must read the label. When you use a pesticide, you are entering into an agreement with the federal government. You are agreeing to read, understand, and follow all label directions. It is important that you read the entire pesticide label. If the label directs you to a website or fact sheet about the pesticide, you must read that material also. The minimum PPE recommended for a pesticide application. If the pesticide label does not specify PPE, what should you wear? The minimum PPE includes 7 items: a long sleeve shirt, long pants, socks, waterproof shoes or boots, gloves that are waterproof and chemical proof, waterproof hat, and eye protection, such as goggles. Here are some tips when choosing and using your PPE. When you put on your waterproof boots, do not tuck your pants into your boots. If you accidentally spray the pants, the pesticide could run down into your boots. Leather or canvas shoes can absorb pesticides. These are not waterproof. Choose rubber or other waterproof material instead. The same idea applies to gloves. Leather, canvas, and cotton gloves can absorb pesticides. These are not waterproof. When choosing gloves, read the label to determine if the gloves are water and chemical proof. When choosing gloves, also make sure they reach up your forearm close to your elbow. Long gloves like these can give you better protection than short gloves, which can expose your wrists. Safety glasses may not offer enough protection, so wear goggles instead. Routine care of PPE. Here are 4 tips for taking good care of your PPE. Store your PPE in a safe area, away from pesticides and other chemicals. Clean your PPE before each day's use. Clean your goggles, chemical-resistant gloves, and waterproof boots. Worn or damaged PPE should be replaced. Check your boots, gloves, and hat carefully for tears or holes. Sometimes, the pesticide may require additional PPE, such as a chemical-resistant apron, face mask, or disposable coveralls. Your employer should provide these items. If a respirator is required, your employer should also provide it. The respirator will require a fit test to make sure that it works when it's on your face. Tips for laundering pesticide application clothing. Your employer may provide disposable coveralls for high-toxicity pesticide applications. Follow your employer's procedures for disposing of these coveralls. When you are applying lower toxicity pesticides, you may be wearing your own clothing. Here are 10 tips for taking care of your personal clothing after a pesticide application. Remember, after applying a pesticide, you should always assume that you probably have contaminated your clothing with the pesticide. Wash such clothing before wearing it again. Here are some tips for washing pesticide-contaminated clothing. 1. Don't bother washing clothing that is soaked with pesticides. Dispose of any clothing that is soaked with pesticides the same way you would dispose of waste pesticides. We'll talk about how to do this in another video. 2. Put gloves on before handling pesticide-contaminated clothing. 3. Shake clothing outside if you have been working with pesticides that are granular, dust, or powdered. Check pockets and cuffs for pesticides as you shake them out. Be careful not to breathe in the dust, so wear goggles and/or a dust mask while you do this. 4. Wash pesticide application clothing each day. If this is not possible, store the unwashed pesticide-contaminated clothing by itself in a plastic bag. And store this bag outside of your house, not in your bedroom, laundry room, or garage. Keep the bag away from children and pets. As you do all this, don't let the clothing come in contact with any other fabric. Wash your work clothing as soon as possible. 5. Always wash pesticide-contaminated clothing separately from uncontaminated clothing. 6. Wash in the hottest water possible for the longest cycle possible. If the machine has a setting for a second rinse, use that setting. 7. Use heavy-duty laundry detergent. Laundry additives such as bleach or ammonia are not useful in removing pesticide residues. 8. Dry the clothing in direct sunlight if possible. Sunlight can help inactivate pesticides. 9. After your clothes are done, run an empty load of only water through the washing machine before washing uncontaminated clothing. 10. Always shower after washing contaminated clothing and before you touch family members. To summarize the tips in this video, use the correct PPE for the pesticide you are applying. Care for your PPE properly. Inspect PPE daily before use to make sure there are no tears or holes. Store your PPE properly. Properly care for your own clothing that may have been contaminated with pesticides. Always read the pesticide label for safety information, what equipment to wear, and how to handle the pesticide.